Alright, let's start it over. Here we go.
Gears of War 1 was released in 2006 as an Xbox 360 exclusive. Microsoft needed another game besides Halo to entice new fans, and they...
Oh, I know, that's wild. 360. There was another video. We'll probably watch this one too, but not today. And it said, what did it say exactly? It was like, imagine playing a game over multiple consoles, generations of consoles, and what game that is. I suppose Gears too. Gears is one, but the video is for Skyrim, and we haven't played that in a while, so maybe we will we'll bring that back. Maybe we're going to bring Skyrim back. That was always a pretty good stream for us, except the last time we did one, we didn't get that many viewers, but it seemed like for a while that was a very good stream for us. Oh, fuck.
Gears of War 1 was released in 2006 as an Xbox 360 exclusive. Microsoft needed another game besides Halo to entice new fans, and they absolutely knocked it out of the park with this one. The game still sits at a 94 on Metacritic and regularly makes lists of top 10 games of all time. As far as shooters go, it's probably top 5 of all time. It's hard to overestimate the seismic effect the Gears of War games had on the industry.
Okay.
Gears of War quite literally created the third-person cover.
Hey, let's go back. Let's go back. We gotta go back. What did that list?
It's hard to overestimate.
Look at that. Look at that. One of my favorite games. The Division. That's why it's The Division that's on that list. I suppose it's a loot shooter. I mean,
seismic effect the Gears of War games had on
very
the
true.
industry. Gears of
I
War
mean, well, hold on. So I do kind of disagree with that. Because Mass Effect was an RPG. If you go and play the first Mass Effect, that is very much more RPG based. Very less. And it was Mass Effect 2, after Gears of War came out, that they decided to go the more loot shooter route, which is very, very noticeable in 3.
Literally created the third-person cover-based shooter. And we can see this in the fact that any game today with cover-based shooting merely copies its mechanics. Last of Us, Uncharted, GTA 5, Mass Effect, Fortnite, The Division, Tomb Raider, all these and more are children of the Gears games. But Gears wasn't just a huge success because of its shooting mechanics. The game was also brutal on a level we hadn't seen before. Created iconic weaponry, iconic characters, and told a one-of-a-kind buddy war story starring Marcus Phoenix and Dominic Santiago. Playing the Gears trilogy through now in 2024, I also noticed just how brutal and smart the 2006 enemy AI still is.
Oh, dude, I had
18 years in enemy AI.
Just before, a couple of days ago, I couldn't do the hardcore mode. I had to go back. I couldn't do it. It was too frustrating. So I had to start it over back on normal. On stream, too. It was super embarrassing.
Games has somehow gotten worse is something I still don't understand. Gears 1 still holds up as having some of the best moment-to-moment gameplay I've seen in a game, and definitely belongs in the pantheon of great games next to titles like Metal Gear Solid. So, where did Gears go wrong? Well, I'm going to get into that later on. If you enjoy these videos, hit the subscribe button. For the rest of this video, I want to analyze the 3 big reasons I think Gears of War was so influential.
Alright, let's hear them.
Number 1, the shooting felt like nothing else.
True.
Number 2, the gameplay felt like nothing else.
True.
And number 3, the story felt like nothing else.
True.
In the second half of the video, I'm going to analyze what many fans consider to be the downfall of Gears. Where did it go wrong, and how might Gears find its way back into the public's good graces?
Looking forward to hearing it.
I'm going to bring up this guy Cliff Bleszinski a lot. He was the creator of Gears and truly seems responsible for nearly everything that made this game good. The dude definitely wears Affliction shirts and Oakleys and drinks Monster, but we're not going to hold that against him.
Hey, bro. Is that to be unexpected from the creator of Gears of War? Like, come on, let's be real here. That's, of course, the guy. Of course, the creator of Gears is that guy. The Monster wear, or drinking Monster. Where's the is that Thrasher? I think that's that clothing company.
Career sadly died in 2017
This just makes
with
sense.
his commercial flop of a game called Lawbreakers, and now he makes musicals with his wife. Yikes.
Yeah, what is up with that? That is interesting. If you look at that, if you actually do a little digging on that guy, that dude's path is interesting. Very interesting. Definitely worthy looking up. A little history on that guy.
The shooting in Gears felt like nothing else. So I know I said this earlier, but Gears of War created the cover-based shooter as we know it today. What do I mean by that? Well, Gears of War finally figured out how cover-based shooting was supposed to feel, and they finally did it right, and now everyone just copies Gears.
That's
now, was there
true.
Technically a game in 2003 called Kill Switch that was actually the first cover-based shooter?
Never played it.
Yes, but it's an unfortunate fact of life that a game must also be popular to be influential, and Kill Switch was not a popular game. Some people have pointed to Resident Evil 4, which came out a year before Gears, as pioneering this shooting style. RE4 doesn't actually let you snap to cover at all, though,
no.
and therefore isn't a cover-based shooter. RE4 definitely influenced third-person shooters, but Gears of War is the father of the third-person cover-based shooter.
I'd agree with that.
It's also really interesting to look at games from this time period that hadn't quite figured out how third-person cover-based shooting is supposed to work. GTA 4, despite being an incredible game, came out a full 2 years after Gears and has absolutely awful cover-based shooting. I happen to be playing it right now, and you can see some of it on screen. In the game, you're always snapping to the wrong person or moving awkwardly between cover. To reference an even older game, I remember playing The Getaway on PS2 back in the day, and wow, the shooting is so awkward and feels so terrible in this game. So given how bad cover-based shooting felt in games up to this time, it's easy to see why Gears of War was so influential. Okay, Andrew, so what exactly was the cover-based shooting mechanic that they invented? Well, it's simple. When walking around, the camera is behind you and looks wherever you are looking. A button snaps you into cover, either behind a wall or waist-high cover. When you hold aim from this position, the camera zooms in so that all you are seeing is the player character's shoulder and head and what you're pointing at. It seems so obvious and intuitive right now, but man,
simple.
It took years for video games to figure out how to do this right. If you don't believe
That's
me...
true. That is absolutely true. Go back and play games from before Gears of War. It's kind of tough. Not gonna lie.
Go back and play GTA 4 or GTA 3 or The Getaway, and you will see how incredibly awkward shooting guns in a third-person game used to be. The gameplay felt like nothing else. So I should.
It was revolutionary for its time.
Nostalgia for the Gears games, and I never even played one all the way through until 2023.
And I shouldn't.
So don't think that what I'm about to say is colored
to mention.
by nostalgia.
To kind of talk about my point, what I said earlier. I mean, not all games are terrible. Like, like Halo is still pretty good, but I don't know. Me personally, going back and playing the whole older Halo games, I don't know, man. I feel like there's just people still love them for a lot of like nostalgia purposes, because I mean they were great for their time. Don't get me wrong, but man. Personally, I think they feel clunky and slow, and it was almost hard for me to play them, to be honest, when I went back and played them. Halo Reach, though, still felt really good. I will say that one did kind of hold up almost. Kind of held up.
Because I literally did not play these games until 2023. Gears of War 1 is still one of the tightest, most difficult, funnest games you can play to this day. If you have never played a Gears game,
I'm experiencing that now.
Ultimate Edition right now, and you will see that almost nothing about this game
with this
has
playthrough
aged at all. So as far as
it is held
goes,
up.
If I had to pick one thing that
but
makes
we're playing
Gears
the Ultimate
1 so
Edition.
special, it would be the difficulty. Gears 1 takes about 8 hours to beat on normal difficulty. Love short games, by the way. Wish more games were like this. But on hardcore difficulty, I swear the game took me at least 20 hours. I could go on and on about the clenched butthole moments I had in this game. Cliffy B was a sadistic master, playing on my worst fears with well-timed enemy wave after enemy wave. When you play Gears 1, particularly the last half of the game, I really got the sense that the guys who made this game sat there and must have beta tested this game over and over again, and they truly wanted the 20th time you play a section of the game to be as fun as the first time you play a section of the game. You can practically smell the Dorito and Cheeto dust coming off of this game, as I imagine Cliffy and the team at Epic spent sleepless night after sleepless night absolutely perfecting the AI in this game. And like I said, I think
they did a good job with the AI. The AI, 100%.
I specifically remember a pretty open area towards the end.
Definitely the best of its time. Flat out, better than Halo, better than all of them. The absolute best AI of its time for an enemy, hands down. It's not even close. You can come at me. I will die on that hill. Best of its time, for sure.
Where I must have died 500 times. The level starts out with Locusts and Theron guards. Locusts will rush you and destroy you. Theron guards have a one-shot crossbow bolt they can hit you with that will immediately end your life. I always remember getting past the Locusts and Theron at this part, and then what should appear but boomers and wretches. This is a brilliant piece of gameplay because as I'm struggling to hide from the boomers, the wretches are ambushing me. It's tiny little details like that that make Gears 1 feel like such a tight, perfectly designed game. Another wonderfully hard thing about Gears is that A, the checkpoints are punishingly difficult, often being very far apart and making you redo entire sections of the game, and B, there is no revive
that's a
mechanic.
frustrating part.
They added the revive mechanic in Gears 2, but in 1, you were just up shit creek. The enemy types in Gears 1 are really well designed and play off of each other perfectly. Locust soldiers behave kind of like players, shooting and hiding behind things. Wretches are those little hunchback things that run straight at you.
The dog
Theron
looking
guards
things.
can kill you with
Monkey,
one shot
actually.
of a bolt. Boomers can one-shot you with a grenade. Snipers can't one-shot you, but will do a ton of damage. And then lastly, you have emergence holes, meaning enemies can show up and flank you from any direction. The balance and the interplay of all of these different types of enemies really made this game sing for me in a way that most games don't. And that's why I think Gears 1 and actually the whole Gears trilogy are classic video games. Technically, I was fighting the same types of enemies the entire game, and yet it never got old for some reason. And the only reason I can imagine why is because the AI was so good that fights always felt tense and taut. Every single fight and hardcore
I agree with pretty much everything he's saying. Because there was times I went back and played Gears 3 recently. Love it. Still love the game. But I find myself much more captivated while playing Gears 1 than I do while playing Gears 3. There was times in Gears 3 when I was playing when I was playing co-op with a friend of mine that I was actually like falling asleep, and I wasn't like that tired. The game was making me fall asleep. That I don't think could ever happen while I play Gears 1. I don't think so. Not possible. It's too intense. Much too intense. It's non-stop action.
Difficulty I made it through by the skin of my teeth. And this is one of the main reasons I was so disappointed with Gears 4 and Gears 5. But I'll talk about those games later on. Another thing I haven't touched on yet in this game is the incredibly fun weaponry like the Lancer rifle, i.e. the chainsaw gun, and the Hammer of Dawn. What is there to say about the Lancer rifle that hasn't been said? Rushing up on an enemy locust and sawing them in half while blood goes everywhere is truly one of those gaming moments you never forget. Playing them for the first time recently, I'm reminded how incredibly gory the first 3 Gears games are, and it just seemed like 4 and 5 got tamer and tamer. The enemies in the original Gears trilogy, there was buckets and buckets of blood, and it was toned down quite a bit in Gears 4 and 5. In a similar way, the Hammer of Dawn was such an iconic weapon in the first game that it comes up again and again in later games because fans loved it so much. There's not much to say about it really other than that it's an incredibly cool idea to have a device that you point at enemies to line up a huge laser from the heavens that comes
again,
down.
First of its time. First of its time. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'll concede that. 100%. Correct me if I'm wrong. Comment if I'm wrong. If there is a game before Gears that you could shoot a satellite laser.
To shred them. In his book Control Freak, Cliffy B talks about how much he looks up to creators like Hideo Kojima in making the Gears games. I think Cliff doesn't give himself enough credit in this area because in my opinion, like I said earlier, Gears is at least as important in the video game pantheon as Metal Gear Solid is. Just as Metal Gear Solid inspired a generation of stealth games, Gears inspired a generation of cover-based shooters.
Yep.
Furthermore, in Cliffy's defense, I love the Metal Gear games, but if you try to go back and play Metal Gear Solid 2 now, you'll see how horribly dated the camera and controls are. And it's not so with the Gears of War games.
Not at all.
Never has a game from...
Not at all. Not at all.
2006 felt so fresh and so relevant to today. Another thing here that Cliffy learned from Hideo Kojima is the art of the boss battle. There are several incredibly clever boss battles in Gears 1
They're great.
in this game, including the Brumak and the Berserker. Doing the Berserker fight for the first time, it took me a while to figure out that you had to take out the columns to beat him, but sometimes it's just simple mechanics like that in boss fights that make them so satisfying. The story felt like nothing else. The Gears trilogy truly taught game developers everywhere exactly how you do a sequel. And I wish this idea was copied more.
Gears 2 was awesome.
Can't improve on the original game.
I was so excited for Gears of War 2. Absolutely. I don't think I've ever been more excited for a video game. Ever. I think back on it all the time. It was Christmas. It was that game release like right before Christmas, I think. When I got it for fucking Christmas. I asked for it for Christmas. I was so fucking excited. I don't think I was ever more excited for a video game. I think I was like, I was before high school for sure. It had to have been 7th or 8th grade. I think 7th. I was young, way too young to play that game.
Nothing at all. Gears 2.
Gears, I kind of had gotten over the creepiness of it, but Gears 1 scared the living shit out of me. Absolute living shit out of me.
3 took the base
way too young to play that game.
Established, and they made it better. They made the story better. They made the set pieces better. They made the mechanics better. Gears 2 and 3 merely improved Gears 1. This is also why I think Cliffy B walked away from Gears after making Gears 3, because he knew he was not able to make it any better. And he was probably right. Most of us fans believe that Gears 3 is the highlight of the series, and it never got better. It only went down from there. But getting back to the story, before I talk about the story of Gears of War, I want to zoom out for a second and talk about the tone of this game and why it works so well together as a complete package. Gears 1 on hardcore difficulty is incredibly hard.
You never beat it.
Characters, and you've got these hard-ass, grizzled
Still never beat
guys.
it.
Marcus, Dom, Coltrane, they're grunt soldiers who did their job so well they got promoted, but they're still grunts. The whole idea of the Gears games is that the camera never zooms out. You are the grunt soldier. You are doing the dirty work. Bureaucrats and politicians will argue about taxes. You're just here to shoot stuff, take care of business, and chainsaw guys in half. As far as the story beats itself, Gears takes the template from classic war movies like Saving Private Ryan, Fury, and Platoon. The camera never pulls out to give you the general's perspective. You've been given your order. You are on a linear mission throughout the whole game to complete an objective.
Right.
In this way, the Gears games are hyper-masculine, hyper-military games. Rough men talking roughly to one another, making jokes, making fun of each other, but we're still here with a job to do.
Now it's all, oh, Coltrane, tell us all about that play again.
Hey, we just did that one. Last stream.
And because of this hyper-masculinity that you see in the first 3 Gears games, I think this is why Gears 4 and 5 fumbled so hard for me. Who the heck is Kate Diaz, and why am I supposed to care about her and her mom? Gears 4 and 5 completely lost the brand identity of the Gears games. Gears is about male bonding and brotherhood. It's about men fighting hard-ass fights in a war against the evil locusts taking over the world. We are the grunts. We are the boots on the ground. It's a game of manliness. No offense to games that focus on female characters, but Gears is a game about men. Moving on to the actual...
And I hope they reconfigure that for Gears or Emergence War. They have to. And I almost think that that's why they are doing Emergence War in the first place, to kind of bring that life back into the franchise. And I really do hope that they take that direction. I think they will, at least for Emergence Day. I would have to guess. You have to. If you don't, the fucking franchise is done. and I hope they use that as the general direction going forward past Emergence Day. I want more Gears games. We all do, don't we? It's great. It's for a great universe. It's a fun game. We want more of that. We want more of this. Here.
Story. You could sum up the story of Gears 1 in a few sentences. Marcus Phoenix and his allies are on a mission to get a device that will take out the Locust Horde. We fumble when we first get the device, but get a better version of the device later on and wipe out the Locusts. Boom. End of Gears 1. Gears 2 and 3, as all good sequels do, significantly expand the range of the story. Possible spoilers ahead, by the way. In Gears 2, the game does emotional damage to you. Dom is your war buddy throughout the first game. In the second game, he talks about how much he misses his wife Maria and wants to see her. We finally get underground to her, and she's inside one of those containers, being drained of her life by the Locusts. He kisses her just as...
Bro, what was that boomer? A little comic relief there.
Her skull fades away and she's zombified right in front of us. Even now, 15 years later, this scene hits hard. There's also a scene later on where Ty, the dude with tattoos all over him, commits suicide when he realizes he's being turned into a locust. I can't think of any other game in 2010 that had suicide or such heavy themes. Moving on to Gears 3, the spot that hit me the hardest in that game is, of course, the death of Dominique Santiago. He's been with you for 3 games at this point, and to kill off a character you thought you were going to get to the finish line with is absolute emotional damage.
That was tough.
The reason
when Dom died, man, that was sad. That broke my heart at the time, dude. Made you want to cry.
I believe the Gears trilogy is so celebrated and the 4th and 5th games are such mixed bags is because plot-wise, the first 3 games followed the formula of classic buddy war movies like Saving Private Ryan. Why this is such a timeless plot for a movie and a timeless plot for a game is because we don't actually want the camera to pull out. We don't actually want to know that everything we're doing just makes us a cog hit in a machine. When you're with your platoon, you have everything you want. Friendship, community, purpose. The orders that come down from your commander don't really matter. This is a basic principle of every army and how it works. The same applies to war stories in games, if they actually want to be realistic and good war stories. The orders coming down from above don't matter. It's our brother next to us that matters.
Right.
Unfortunately, again, Gears 4 doesn't seem to understand any of that. Instead of Gears being about brotherhood, duty, and a common purpose to your fellow man, Gears 4 is about women, motherhood, and being a deserter. It also plays the worst of any of the Gears games so far, but I'll get into that later. Now, I'm no sexist, and I'm totally fine with women being in the Gears games, but when the original trilogy were such male-focused, hyper-masculine games about brotherhood and duty, and
then Gears 4 just ends, too. Like, the game just starts picking up, and then it ends. Then the fucking credits roll. I remember when I played that, I was like, the game's over? It was just starting to get good. Like, it was just such an utter disappointment. It sucked.
Its head and make it about a mother and a daughter, well, it's easy to see why Gears 4 was such a failure critically and commercially. If they wanted to tell the story of Kate Diaz, I think it should have been a spin-off game kind of like Uncharted Lost Legacy. Gears is about Marcus Phoenix the same way Uncharted is about Nathan Drake. Modern films and media keep doing this to our characters, and I wonder when they will learn that we don't want beloved characters changed. If you want to introduce a new character...
Technically, they didn't change Marcus. They just made his son the main character.
It's similar to the movie She-Hulk that recently came out. Nobody wanted this movie.
Man, my
Nobody
nose
asked for this movie. And
my
no
left
surprise,
nostril is like
it bombed.
extremely clogged right now.
Well, what about Gears 5? Unfortunately, it fell suspect to all the same problems of Gears 4. It's overly complicated. It gets away from the hyper-masculine, boots-on-the-ground story about men.
It is way too easy, too.
And it becomes a game about deserting the military, being a coward, sisterhood, about women, and starring women. One of the final confrontations in Gears 5 involves Kate going head-to-head with Jin, the head of the COG.
Is there a problem, people?
No problem at all, Mrs. Kennedy.
We were just discussing ideas of what to do with the new Prince Eric movie.
Put a chick in it, make her gay!
I found the story of Gears 5 so boring that I barely made it to the end of the game. In addition to the story of Gears 4 and 5 being vastly inferior to the trilogy, the gameplay itself is inferior as well. If you check out the clip on screen, I'm playing hardcore difficulty in Gears of War 1. The combat is incredibly tense and incredibly hard. If you stick your head out for more than a few seconds, the cog in the middle of the screen goes completely red.
Oh yeah.
Fire at all or moving at a bad time in Gears 1 means instant death with nobody to pick you up.
Yep.
So how does the difficulty of Gears 4 compare? Well, it's significantly easier. In Gears 4 on hardcore mode, there's a segment where you are fighting 4 boomers at once. I immediately beat this part on my first try. Meanwhile, in Gears 1, the hardest part of the game had 2 boomers, and I must have died 50 times at this part on hardcore mode. Did you notice how in Gears 1 I had to stay in cover basically all the time, otherwise I would get immediately melted, the way war should actually be? Well, in Gears 4 hardcore mode, I can just run around. Wander around. Nobody's attacking me. No danger. So the hardest difficulty in the Gears trilogy is insane, and let's just say it's insane. In Gears 4 and 5, they added an additional difficulty even harder than insane called inconceivable. But guys, I gotta be honest, inconceivable in Gears 4 doesn't even come close to insane in Gears 1. Make that make sense for me. In Gears 1, I still found the enemies to be smarter, to be constantly outwitting me, whereas in Gears 4 and 5 on Inconceivable, it was kind of like they made the enemies spongier and they could take more bullets, but they weren't really smarter and the AI wasn't really more advanced. But guys, this goes back to what I was saying earlier, that the original Gears trilogy are the hardest Gears games.
100%.
They're much harder and they have more of a hardcore feel
100%.
than Gears 4 and 5. Gears 4 and 5 are soft games. They're easy to beat. They were easy to get through, and they don't represent nearly the challenge of the original 3 Gears games.
No, not even close.
So guys, just to begin to wrap this video up, I am not even close
3
to
compared
the
to
world's
1.
biggest Gears fan, and I have only recently started playing this series. But what I do know is it's incredibly sad for me to see a beloved trilogy of games get watered down, get softened, get feminized, get sanitized, and turned into the garbage that we have in Gears 4 and Gears 5. And no offense to you if you do like Gears 4 and 5, I just feel like they do not represent the core brand identity that we see in the original Gears trilogy.
They really don't.
As far as I'm concerned, Gears of War
I
1,
kind of
2,
agree
and
with
3
that.
are the only real Gears games, and I hope that Microsoft returns to this original formula, returns to the masculine feel, to
I think they will.
Feel, returns to the
I think they will with
ground,
Emergence Day
to the
at
true
minimum.
realistic military
God, I
style
hope
game
so.
that these first 3 games were. And I could almost look past the fact that Gears 4 and 5 are about motherhood instead of brotherhood if these games were still fun and difficult. But the difficulty was toned down as well to just make these games completely uninteresting to me. So in summation, I think Microsoft giving the Gears games to the Coalition, it's similar to what they did by giving Halo to 343i. These have become bad games, and they've gotten away from the core identity of what made these games good. And I hope they find a new studio, whether it means bringing back in Cliffy B.
I agree.
Or whatever they want to do. I hope they get...
I don't think they're bringing back Cliffy B. That's not going to happen. That was, I believe there was a Twitter post recently by him, and it kind of solidified that will not happen. Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything that he said in this video. And everything that I was going to say, I think I said it already. Good video. Give this guy a follow. Or a sub. He's only at 160. I am already. Okay. Sweet. Well, let's get into Gears.